The Washington Wizards have been linked to the Detroit Pistons' Jaden Ivey once again. So we're going to talk about that. But does it make sense at this point? Again, we're going to talk about it next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Brandon Scott again, and I appreciate you guys making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And today we got a special guest, my guy back on the show, Abdullah from the DMVSportsZone, covering not only the Washington Wizards, but our beloved Washington Commanders, man. So real quick before we talk about the Wiz, man, how excited are you about these Washington Commanders, man?
If you told me before the season that the Commanders after 6 games were going to be 4-2, I would call you a crazy man. But safe to say we have a franchise quarterback, franchise kicker, and fan base is back in Washington. And it's amazing, man. And now Wizards basketball is back. The journey to Cooper Flag. It's good times in Washington, man.
Oh, great time for sports fans in the DMV, man. So this Sunday, man, the Panthers coming into town. My wife's Panthers fan, so it's kind of a double whammy, man. I get to watch her face while they get smacked up at Northwest Stadium, so I'm very happy about that. So let's get into Wizards land, man. Another report has linking the Washington Wizards to Jaden Ivey of the Detroit Pistons. So we're going to respond to that and look at Jonas Valanciunas and reports that the Los Angeles Lakers are heavily going to pursue him at some point this season coming up. So let's start off with Jaden Ivey. See, look, already talking about Jaden Daniels, man. All right, Jaden Ivey. So this is a report through Inside the Wizards on Sports Illustrated. And this story is actually put through Bleacher Report. So shout out to Bleacher Report. And it says that Bleacher Report has again linked Ivey to the Wizards as a potential trade target. This time, they specifically called him an ambitious potential trade target for the Washington Wizards. And it says, quote unquote, the Washington Wizards, meanwhile, don't have a single surefire answer for the long-term lead playmaker's role. Even if you're high on Buff Carrington, he's far from a can't-miss prospect. Ivey isn't necessarily one either, but he's averaged 15.8 points and 4.5 assists during his 2 NBA seasons. So looking at the report, not a lot of love for Bub Carrington, but I guess this is kind of a 2-part question for you, Abdullah. Number one, do you agree with their assessment that Bub Carrington is far from a can't-miss prospect? And if indeed the Washington Wizards would look to obtain Jaden Ivey, where would he fit in the equation here in DC?
Well, I think it's kind of unfair just because Bub just got drafted. And obviously, can't miss. I mean, like every other person in this draft that is coming into this draft, no one really was a can't-miss prospect like Wemby. But just to dismiss him off like that and say, bringing Jaden Ivey in, I'm not a big fan of it. We saw Bub Carrington in the summer league. He had a lot of flashes. Even in preseason, been looking pretty good. So, and this answers the second question. I just don't see it being a good fit bringing in Jaden Ivey with all the young talent that we already have. Obviously, Jaden Ivey, maybe even before the draft, maybe would have been a fan of it. And I just don't think it would make sense in DC.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, if you look at Jaden Ivey, man, he is a really, really good young player, man. And there's been questions about whether he wants to stay in Detroit long term. If you look at his stats real quick, last couple of years, availability is your best ability. So he's been a guy where he's played. His rookie year in the 2022-2023 season, he played 74 games, starting 73 of them. Averaging around 31 minutes a game. And then last year, he's played 77 games and started 61. So he's definitely available. He's a guy where, if you look at the current situation with the Wizards, got Malcolm Brogdon out. But I'm with you on that. Bub Carrington, I can't miss prospect. I think that, yes, the sample size is small, summer league and some preseason games, but you see the potential with him. And to me, you see enough potential in Bub Carrington that he's going to be a bona fide star, in my opinion. He's a dog, man. Defensively, he's getting better. He shows energy, but offensively, man, as a sniper, as that guy who can play on ball, off ball. And, Will Dawkins himself said they're going to invest heavily in Jordan Poole and Bub Carrington in that backcourt. But, here's the thing with Jordan Poole. I'm a big Jordan Poole fan, but we're in a position with Jordan Poole. If he plays to the standard that we think, we hope he can play, he very well could be a future piece. Now, he very well could be a trade piece too, because if you look at a contract, If you get to a point where you get his trade value up and you move him and get some assets back, that's not a bad idea either. So, I like Jordan Poole. I love me some JP13, but I'm also a realist, and I'm a guy who knows the business of the NBA. That look, Will Dawkins made it known nobody's untouchable except for Blau and his 3 draft picks that he's got in this year's draft. Everybody else is tradable. The Denny Avia trade proved everybody else is tradable. So Jordan Poole is a tradable guy, just like Kyle Kuzma, just like Jonas Valanciunas. Sadiq Bey, we'll see. With his age, we'll see him coming off that ACL injury and surgery. But sooner or later, this is gonna be a youth movement. They said that on media day. Will Dawkins, this team, he said straight from the horse's mouth, this team's gonna get younger, especially after the deadline. It's going to become a younger team. You're gonna see a lot of these veterans come off the books. Now, looking at Jaden Ivey, he can play some ball. Now the question is, if you were to acquire him, where would you fit him? And to me, he'd be a 2 guard. So if you will make a move for Jaden Ivey, then you're pretty much saying that Bub Carrington is your lead guard of the future. And you're pretty much saying that once we get the value up on Jordan Poole, you're going to move him at some point. So if they decide to go that route, I'm not necessarily unhappy because I think that Jaden Ivey can play ball. If you look at his age, 22 years old, so he fits the timeline. All 5 draft picks under Will Dawkins are all 20 and below. None of them can have a beer. So, so he fits the timeline. You know what I mean? He's 22. He'll be in a rookie skill contract. So I'm not totally against it, but just something real, to me, the biggest thing is this. To make a move just to make a move, I think it's the wrong equation when it comes to being a GM. Don't make a move, just make a move. Make the right move. And you don't just go out there and try to get a Jaden Ivey. You see if Jordan Poole and Bub Carrington can coexist in the same backcourt because there's a lot of question marks. Look, Keyshawn George proved that he's got starting potential. He looks like he's a steal in the later stages of the first round, man. We got him at 24 from the Knicks. So, he's looking like a steal right now. You add in Bub Carrington with his potential. Alex Sarr, where here's the crazy thing. This is how bipolar the Wizards fan can be at times, man, because after 5 Summer League games, they were ready to call this man a bust. Now, all of a sudden, people were saying, oh, man, he's got talent after all. No, he had talent the whole time. This kid can play. It's just he has to, really, figure out where he's at. You go from a league, in Australia to the NBA. There's a big learning curve there, and people don't understand that. And you're starting to see the potential there. So I'm with you on that. If you were to go that direction, if they say, hey, Jordan Poole is a tradable guy, we're looking at investing in Bub Carrington and league guard, then okay, Jaden Ivey would not be a bad compliment to Bub Carrington, in my opinion. That would be a really nice backcourt. But to make a move just to make a move, I'm against that. You make a move. You know what I mean?
It just doesn't make any sense at all. I agree with you. Like, make the right move, especially since we're a young team and we're trying to change the culture here in Washington.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Culture is the ground floor right now. It's solidifying that standard. And head coach Brian Keefe, man, I think he's getting a full year's worth of work with him being a developmental head coach. You're going to see a lot of progress this year. And I get it. A lot of fans are still skeptical because number one, we haven't been through a proper rebuild. Number two, we've gone through GMs looking at, exclusively Ernie Grunfeld, even though Tommy Shepard had his moments. But they traded away first rounders. They missed picks. It was abysmal. We have a front office now that, look, analytics are put in there. Scouting, development are things that are prioritized, where scouting and development were things that were non-existent underneath the previous regime. So we're definitely heading in the right direction. So I'm cool with what we got. We'll see if it works. And then if you need to make a move, then maybe you go and look at a Jaden Ivey, or you look at another young guard that can complement who the future is at point guard. But, like I said, man, you don't make a move just to make a move because it becomes counterproductive. Chemistry is a big thing. And these young guys are eventually going to be starting with each other. It's going to get younger, man, and they have to build that chemistry. And you have to find the right pieces that complement each other, especially looking at 2025 because, look, Cooper Flag, I'm telling you, man, if we pull off Cooper Flag or Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, the top 10 itself, you have a lot of good talent in this draft, man. You have that Gerard, that French point guard, man, where, look, if Bub Carrington, if you like him at 2 guard and you don't necessarily see JP13 as the guy, then you can go pick another guy up. So I think we're definitely heading the right direction. But don't get it twisted, man. 2025 and 2026, to me, are the 2 most important drafts, because after that, I see the pieces we have now progressing to the point where we might want to make that nice big move to push us over the top to become a playoff team. So next, we're going to look at Jonas Valanciunas. How soon could he be on his way to LAX? And then we're going to take a look at a few other things, and we're going to call it a night, man. But before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live, play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You can start with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, everybody, let's get back into it. All right, on to Jonas Valanciunas. And like I said, when you look at the way he was acquired, obviously the Los Angeles Lakers have a lot of interest in him. And so did the Knicks before they made a move for Cat, even though matter of fact, I'm gonna ask you real quick, maybe kind of talk about NBA overall as opposed to the Wizards. That move for Cat by the Knicks, do you think it pushes them in the conversation to challenge the Celtics? Or where do you place them as far as the hierarchy in the Eastern Conference?
Obviously, I think it makes them better, but I still have Boston coming out of the East. It does suck seeing DiVincenzo go to the Timberwolves, but now it's for sure solidified that it will be Boston versus New York, the Eastern Conference Finals, without a doubt. We'll just see what happens. I think in that was the Eastern Conference Finals. They got to figure out a way to gel it and make sure they don't choke like last year against Indiana.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think it definitely makes them a better team. I mean, they're loaded, man. Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Jalen Brunson. I mean, the list goes on. They're loaded. But we were talking about before, in the beginning of the show, or before the show, talking about the Eagles, going back to the NFL to use them as an example where, when they had Vince Young as backup quarterback, where they had Nani Asamoah at corner, you could accumulate a lot of talent doesn't mean they fit. And I want to see how the fit goes, especially between Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. How do they feed off each other, being both 3-and-D wings? You know what I mean? So I think they're definitely a good team, but all roads go through Boston. Now, the Western Conference is a monster, man. I mean, team 1 through team 10 can easily be make a run for the championship, man. Where if you look at the Eastern Conference, you got Boston, you got New York, but then after that, Milwaukee, after that, it is not as clear cut as who's the favorite. So getting into Jonas Valanciunas, we have a couple of reports to talk about Jonas Valanciunas. When he was signed to the Washington Wizards, Will Dawkins was playing chess, not checkers. He knew that both the Knicks, the Lakers, and amongst other teams wanted his services. We got him on the cheap, 3 years, $30 million. I mean, we got him on a really ridiculously low contract. So, again, two-part question. Hate to keep hitting you with these two-part questions, but before we get in that, I'm gonna get over the reports real quick, Abdullah. First report, obviously, both of these reports are through Inside the Wizards, Washington Wizards on Sports Illustrated, and it says the Washington Wizards are widely expected to be active in trade discussions leading up to the 2024-2025 NBA draft deadline. One player to keep a close eye on will be veteran center Jonas Valanciunas. With that in mind, the Los Angeles Lakers have been heavily connected as a team that will try to acquire Valanciunas from the Wizards at some point this upcoming season. Now, this other report says the Lakers must trade for a center to help LeBron and Anthony Davis win a title amid NBA rumors. It also says that Los Angeles Lakers need depth at center, and according to ESPN's Shams Charania, the team is exploring options to add a big man to the roster. So the two-part question is this. How much of a fit is Jonas Valanciunas on the Lakers? And do you see him being moved a lot sooner than earlier or a lot sooner than later?
I think the fit, that's a good question. It's going to be interesting to see how him and AD can go at it offensively and defensively. But obviously, Jonas Valanciunas, when it comes to him, a double-double rebounding machine, Travis Kelce's evil twin. It even helps out going to the Wizards' perspective. I mean, I think Wizards were bottom 5 in rebounding, so great move by Will Dawkins there. But obviously, it's similar to when he got Chris Paul in OKC, where you get to maximize that veteran's trade value and then ship them off for draft picks. And I think that's what the Wizards are going to do. And the Lakers, I mean, they're always in the midst of trade talks. So if they're going to want him, there's going to be a reason why. So I think that fits there. And I think it's going to be somewhat near that trade deadline where clearly the Wizards are not winning that many games as expected. And they maximize his trade value. And obviously his stats are there. And I think LA gets the move. And I'm a big LeBron guy, so it would be great to see that.
See, I'm an old head, man. I'm an 85 baby, man. So I am an MJ guy. But, we're going to have the discussion about, LeBron and Jordan, man. But I'm with you. But I do think that he's traded a lot sooner than later. If you look at the center situation with the Wizards, you got Rashawn Holmes, 2-year contract. But not to say he can't be moved this year. Very cheap contract with them retaining him with 2-year contract. You got Tristan Vucevic, who's going to need minutes to develop. You've got Marvin Bagley on the expiring contract. So I see them showcasing Marvin Bagley III, Rashawn Holmes, and Jonas Valanciunas. And, Jonas Valanciunas is definitely going to make us a better rebounding team. But And you obviously you hear the lip service, which is and this is a question that I asked Jonas Valanciunas myself. I said, what really attracted you to the Wizards? And he says, and he gave the answer that I think the company answered. And don't get me wrong, Jonas Valanciunas, really down to earth guy, really funny guy, but he likes the young core and he likes the direction and he likes being a mentor. But eventually, you're going to want to play for a chip, and I definitely see him as a player that want to get a chip on his way out because he's getting to the point. If you look at his play style, Jonas Valanciunas is always been a big Wizards killer. He kills us every time he plays against us, man. Whether he's on the Grizzlies, whether he's on the Pelicans, whether he was a Raptor, he always.
The Raptors, man! Oh my goodness,
man, he gave us fits, dude. Like he was a Wizards killer to the highest degree. But he's a guy who's definitely gonna make us a better team in the short term. But I definitely see him being moved. I see a lot of vets being moved. And we're gonna slide into the next guy real quick because Kyle Kuzma, man. If you look at his offseason, very active on Twitter or AKA X. He kind of went back and forth between politics. We ain't gonna get into politics, but he has struggled. This preseason he has struggled. So, do you see what's the scenario? I guess I've been hitting you all kinds of 2-part questions, man. So I'm gonna hit you with another one, man. Are you concerned about him? And I guess we'll just start with that. Are you concerned about it? What his short work through the preseason, or you think he's gonna be all right?
I think at this point, Kuzma his 1 foot's already out the door. I think, in my opinion, he's going to be traded before Jonas Valanciunas. Because even in this, I don't know if that's a crazy take, but even in his offseason, I generally thought before FDA got traded that Kuzma was going to be that guy traded. Always thought Dallas would have been that team to trade for him. But obviously, Kuzma, 20 points a night, awesome. But the efficiency, holy, it's just it is not there. And obviously, all the off-court antics, he can sometimes be questionable, but on the court, yeah, he's a bucket. But at the end of the day, I think he wants to go back to the contending team and be that piece that maybe that third or fourth option. And clearly in DC, number 1, number 2 option just hasn't worked out.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. Kyle Kuzma, let me say this. It's really a long answer here, but I wasn't a big fan of him with the Lakers. Wasn't a big fan at all. I saw a lot of immaturity, especially with him going back and forth with Lonzo Ball and all that stuff. But once he came to DC, he really became a complete player. He became that scoring guy, that 20 points a night scoring guy. But here's the thing. We're going into year 2 of a rebuild. I get it. He can score 20 points a night, but like you just said, and like I cover all the time on here, man, is that the efficiency takes a hit. Like, he's got to become more of an efficient player. But, this is a question I asked. I said, look, you've won a chip. You become a leader here in DC. How do you get these other guys involved? And he said, look, I have to find ways to change my game to get other people involved, but that has been yet to be seen. Like for him to be that guy, like I don't have a problem with him being that number 1 option for right now. Obviously, he's a 4th option on a really good team. Here in DC, he's number 1 option because it takes a lot of the scoring pressure off of Bilal and Alex Sarr. Gives them time to get their offensive games going, let them develop, and they don't have to shoulder a lot of that load. He could be that scorer. You know what I mean? Same thing with JP13. They both can take the brunt of the pressure off these young guys, let them, fine-tune their defense and get better on the offense. And then when it's time for them to carry on more responsibility and weight offensively, then you make that move. But with him, he's got to find ways to get them the ball. This inefficient game has to stop. And now he seems like he's uninterested. And to a certain degree, he's trying to mirror Bradley Beal a little bit with the bad body language where, it seems like he's not interested. He seems like he's he's down. You knew what you got yourself into. Like you had a trade going to Dallas that was signed, sealed, and delivered. And you said, look, I don't want to go. I didn't feel like they're the right team at the time, even though they end up going to the NBA finals. And yeah, it's funny watching him off the court. He's very active on X. He's very opinionated. There was
the fashion.
yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know if you saw my what I put on there, man, but it is what it is on that fact. I mean, I'm kind of 50-50 on it. Like you kind of set yourself up when you dress this kind of way, but then are we really talking about his fashion? Like people are, Chandler Parsons, and Chandler Parsons of all people shouldn't say too much because when him and like Mark Cuban like best friends when he's in Dallas, like you can't say too much. He's like the RG3 of the NBA, hanging out with the owner and all that. So I don't take too much what he has to say, but look at our on-court production. He's got to show up. He's got to show up, man. I mean, number 1 scoring option, you got to become more efficient. You have to find ways to get the other guys involved. And that's what I'm saying. Use your game, use your size to set people up. He's 6'10"? Attack the basket. Stop being so reliant on that jumper. Attack the basket. And once the defense collapses, Then you can get the ball in the hands of Alex on the outside, Bilal on the outside, Corey Kispert on the outside, Keyshawn George on the outside. You got shooters now. Keyshawn George and Corey Kispert. I can say we're gonna slide there next, man, before we roll. So we're gonna get into how excited are you with the potential fit of Keyshawn George and Corey Kispert on that second unit. So we're gonna talk about that real quick. But before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by Gametime. So you guys know that I'm a game fanatic, man. I go to NFL games, college, Major League Baseball, NBA. I can't get enough. I've used every ticketing app, and to me, Gametime is better than all the competitors. I ain't gonna name drop nobody, but there's three main reasons why. Well, number one, Gametime picks. Curation makes it easier to save money not only on sports tickets, but on concerts, comedy shows, theater events, etc. What else? All in pricing. Targeting this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. So look, a $50 ticket doesn't have to be a $90 ticket. Now with Gametime. Seat views. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what your view is and if you get your money's worth. So look, do yourself a favor and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And terms apply. And again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime, baby. All right, everybody, let's get back into this. Like I said, we had a lot to cover tonight. Like I said, man, covered a lot tonight. So let's slide into Keyshawn George and Corey Kispert. Keyshawn George emerging as a steal in the 24th pick in the first round. Then you look at Corey Kispert. They have 5 days to the 21st to sign him to that extension. Now, I for one think sign him, man. Sign him. You need a guy like Corey Kispert in DC. You need that sniper who has shown that he's got high basketball IQ. He can move without the ball. He can slash, attack the basket. His ball handling's got better. He's got more effort on the defensive end, even though he's far from being a lockdown guy. So looking at a potential 1-2 punch on the second unit with him and Keyshawn George, how good can they be on the bench?
I think you mentioned it. I mean, the potential that Keyshawn George has, that's something that I'm excited about. Yeah. Corey Kispert, I don't know, if you look back 4 years ago, I did a mock draft about him. I wanted him so bad, and obviously really hasn't panned out. But the one big thing is that he's gotten better every year. And like you said, we need a three-point sniper on this team, every NBA team, regardless of a rebuild or if you're a contender, you need that three-point sniper. So I want them to give him that extension. And I think it can be really good. Obviously, Corey's Kispert's three-point percentage, like I said, increases every year. And with Keyshawn, the potential is there. So there's no reason to be negative about those two coming off the bench.
No, I think it could be a nice 1-2 punch, man. I mean, if you look at the second unit and how good they can be, at point guard, you got Bub, but Jared Butler, not bad, man. He's showing glimpses that, we have good depth at point guard. Now, Malcolm Brogdon, when he comes back, I see him being that sixth man with Jordan Poole pushing the pace at point guard. But, I asked you the question real quick, and so I'm going to change it up real quick because I think we're both excited about the prospect of Keyshawn George and Corey Kispert. And like I said, I think you definitely pay the man. Pay him. Looking at, we talked about Kyle Kuzma with him kind of struggling preseason. JP13. He is officially that starting point guard. What do you want to see for him to kind of step up? Like, he's had glimpses here and there. He's not bad. He hasn't struggled all the way, but he hasn't had that one dominant performance you really want to see from him. For him to be solidified as a future at point guard, what do you want to see from him this season?
What I don't want to see is crazy shots where I'm scratching my head. Like a lot last year before Brian Keefe became the coach. But no, Jordan Poole, obviously when that switch happened, it was a learning curve. He took it. And I'm hoping to see moments where obviously he doesn't have to be the hero. I think after last year, he realizes that now. And like you said, I'm also a fan of Jordan Poole. I still believe in him. So it's just the little things like the shot IQ, knowing when to make the right pass, the right read, and body language, like all those above. Like that's what I want to see. Even though it might seem like the bare minimum, it's a lot compared to what we saw last year.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Last year it was very roller coaster year, man. I mean, he struggled, and then he stepped it up at six man, and then you saw the potential with him starting point guard when Tyus went down. So you see the potential, but here's the thing. I kind of covered this last video, man. I mean, potential is a beautiful thing till it's not, right? I mean, potentially, there's a lot of people got potential. Like it's beautiful to have potential, right? But how many thousands of guys could have been that next Jordan? I'm looking at Len Bias, DMV guy. Unfortunately, his life ended early, man. He was one guy that could have been, so for every Jordan, there's 1,000 guys who never made it. Potential is beautiful, but you've got to capitalize on that potential. he's for him to be that guy at point guard. We know he can score, but you got to that vision. You see glimpses where the vision's on point. That last preseason game, there was easily 2-3 passes where they dropped it or they couldn't handle it, and he served up some dimes, man. He can definitely find people. It's just fine-tuning those other parts of being a point guard, being that floor general, running plays, dictating pace. These are things I want to see him improve on. You see him stepping up with leadership, because the biggest thing that really gets me about leadership is that Kyle Kuzma has been probably one of the bigger leaders on his team outside of Anthony Gill, and you just don't see it this year early on. I mean, you're already seeing a lot of bad body language. We haven't even hit opening night yet. So that's why I'm kind of concerned a little bit. It's like, come on, man, you wanted to be here. So getting back to Jordan Poole, you see photos of him at Caps games, him wearing, you do, going to Nats games, doing stuff around the community. So you definitely see a guy that wants to be here long term. But like I said, if you want to be here long term, you've got to fine tune the point guard position, because look, we're spoiled here, Abdullah. I mean, we had Gilbert Arenas, we had John Wall, we had a year of Russell Westbrook. We have a high standard when it comes to who holds down the point guard position. We've had some really good point guards here in DC, man. And you can go even further, man. I mean, I was a Ross Strickland guy. I mean, I'm saying, like, we've had some good point guards here in the DMV. So I definitely want to see him carry the torch, being that next great point guard. But he's got it. I'll say this before we roll, man. We don't need him to be good. We need him to be great, because there's a difference between being just an average point guard and being that franchise point guard. We need you to be great. John Wall, hate him or love him, he's my favorite Wizard all time, but he brought it every night. Now, yes, there was question marks. Yes, we know that John Wall sometimes used to love going to the Rose Bar. He came to camp out of shape a few times. I forget what year it was, man, but he showed up in camp, man, where his photo looked like he was homeless, man. So, he's had his time.
Yeah, like a lot of hair on him too, right?
Yeah, he had a lot of hair. His beard was all, he's had his moments, man. But, so we've had some characters. If you look at Gilbert Arenas, Hibachi, aka Agent Zero, he's another guy, man, where he just can't stop talking. Like, some of his takes are hit or miss, but so I'm with you, man. You definitely want to see a lot more from Jordan Poole if he wants to be the next great point guard here in DC. So we're gonna go roll out, man. But I got one real question, man, because you already mentioned LeBron. So we're gonna talk about this real quick before we roll out, man. Like I said, I'm an MJ guy, 85, baby. I grew up, the year I was born, he was rookie of the year. So I now that we both kind of come from two different eras, I'm gonna ask you, why is it LeBron James over MJ to you? Like, we all got our reasons, but why is it MJ or why is it LeBron to you?
Sorry, Beam, I just cut out, but I heard what you said. I mean, I think for me, it's just if I look at his path compared to MJ's path, the challenges that LeBron had to go through, the scrutiny that he came into the NBA, I just think the path and his ability, the longevity and all. And obviously, like, maybe if I saw Michael Jordan play, maybe it would be different. But when I factor all of that in and his ability to just come in and dominate every night, regardless of the situation, and it really solidified me in 2018 when he took that Cavs team to the finals. I genuinely think, and I'm not going to MJ, but I just don't think any player in NBA history takes that team to the NBA finals. And it's a lot of things. And his ability to play at this age, I generally think he could play till he's 50. Obviously, it won't be as high, might be a role player, but it's just night in and night out. The way he takes care of his body, the way he carries himself off the court he grew up in but a very bad neighborhood in Cleveland. Yeah. And just could have easily fallen into pressure and been in the headlines for wrong things. But if I factored all of that in, I just think, like, regardless, he's that guy at number one for me.
I mean, I respect that. And like I said, we two different eras. So I get that, man. Like I said, I grew up watching MJ. I grew up watching Kobe. I saw LeBron come in. And I will agree on this point. If you look at LeBron when he first came in the league with the Cavs, I mean, they had some bad teams. I mean, you had I forget what the center was. What's the center there?
The crazy last name, Joke.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was his second guy. I mean, they were abysmal teams. But
Drew Gooden was on that team. I remember.
Oh man, shout out to Drew Gooden, man. Shout out to Drew. But I mean, if you look at Jordan, people forget how bad Chicago was. The Bulls were nothing close to when they first came into the league. I mean, if you watch the documentary, The Last Dance, the soccer team, the indoor soccer team they sold more tickets than the Bulls did in the early 80s and in the late 70s. So he came into a really bad situation, man, where drug use was high in the NBA, so and then he broke his foot the second year. So I get that, but Jordan, it's just everything's about perspective, right? Two different perspectives. To me, I'll say this. I love me some Jordan. I think he's the best player to ever play the game. Michael Jordan, to me, he's the best player to ever play. But if you look at your Mount Rushmore in the NBA, me personally, it's Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, and that fourth spot's really a booger, man, because I want to say Shaquille O'Neal, because the center position, to me, he's the most dominant center to ever play the game. But, like I said, it's all perspective. So to me, before we roll, I will say this. And like I said, for all my MJ people, they probably going to get on me, but
we can do an hour video, man. Don't worry, you can do it.
I know, man. I'll say that LeBron will probably go down as the most complete player. If you look at his body of work with him being, physically, he's a beast. You can't really compare him physically to him.
Let me ask you this. Sorry. Yeah, what would he have to do to surpass? Or do you think it's not possible at all?
That's a good question. That is a really good question. For him to surpass MJ, I think in ways he has. It's just the one fact, I'm going to talk about me, not so much anybody else, but the reasons why I don't hold him to a high esteem like I do MJ is because I look at the amount of talent he's had to win championships. I look at Miami Heat. You got two legitimate all-stars on the side of him. And yeah, he didn't have a point guard. I think the point guard was Mario Chalmers, yeah, you go to Cleveland, it wasn't just, his second time in Cleveland. He had a prime Kyrie Irving. He had Kevin Love, which Kevin Love, do you really consider him a top flight all-star? No, but he's a guy that they played him to his strengths to a certain degree, even though they try to make him a three-point shooter, which I didn't agree with, but he had talent around him. And the same in the Lakers, Anthony Davis, it's emerging that he's not that number two that's really going to push you as a number one. They need another guy out there, So I do like LeBron. I do think he'll go down as the best overall player of all time. It's just, I don't know. It's just, if you look at the teams that Jordan had, he had Scottie Pippen, but outside of that, you didn't have any all-stars. B.J. Armstrong, Steve Kerr, John Paxson, Bill Winnington. He had good role guys. And so, well, yeah. So I think I think we both can agree it's not so much one's better than the other, is that they both come from two different eras where it's two different ways to build a team. When the Bulls were dominant, role players were a premium. Dennis Rodman was a premium because, he's the best on-ball defender ever. It's not even close. Best rebounder ever. But he was a good role guy. He's not a guy. You're never going to ask Dennis Rodman to go out there and get 15 points because you're just going to be heartbroken. But now you need all-stars. You need top flight guys that help you out. And that's just where the league is now. So I figured I'd ask you real quick, man, but we're going to go ahead and call it a night, man. Like I said, you guys definitely keep an eye on Abdullah, man, because you're going to see him a lot more, man. So like I said, definitely appreciate you coming on, man. Definitely appreciate
one last thing. I want to say this. When Wizards killers, going back to Jonas Valanciunas, the number one Wizards killer, in my opinion, forever will be Terry Rozier. That's gonna be my guy when it comes. Oh my! But you don't know how many times watching him as a kid, Charlotte or Boston, it was him always hitting the dagger shots, because we talked about Wizards killers, and there's so many, there's a huge list, but Terry Rozier was that the OG scary Terry.
Man, you can also argue this point real quick before we roll, that Ernie Grunfeld was probably the biggest Wizards killer of all time. I'm just saying. So, all right, man. We're going to go ahead and roll tonight, man. Before we roll, you got anything you want to plug real quick, man?
Yeah, if you guys can follow my friends and I podcast at DMVSportsZone on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Try to push out a lot of Commanders content, but we're going to try to push out more Wizards now that the season's coming back up, Caps and Nats. And thanks again, B. I love talking about the Wizards, talking about sports. Just it's plain simple and so fun.
Hey, man, it's always a pleasure when you're on here, man. I love chopping up basketball with you, man. Like I said, you guys definitely pay attention to my man right here, because you're going to see him a lot more often, man. We're definitely going to have you on the show a lot more often, man. So definitely appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and chop it up with your boy, man. So we're going to go ahead and call it a night, man. So let's see. Looking ahead real quick, everybody. Tomorrow night, we're going to do a preview and talk about Anthony Gill a little bit tomorrow, and then we have the last preseason game on Friday, because look, the season is right around the corner. So definitely excited to get back into Wizards basketball, man. So all right, everybody, hails to the Wizards and peace. See everybody next time.